Hey guys, let's go ahead and get into this disturbing case that I'm going to discuss on today. Very disturbing. I heard about this case multiple years ago and I decided to touch on it on my channel. If this is something that you're interested in, it's true crime, you're definitely in the right spot. I'm not going to waste a whole lot of time before we go ahead and get into it. This took place in Hong Kong in the spring of 1999 when a nightclub hostess was abducted, essayed, and tortured to death in an apartment in Kowloon. Her name was Fan Man-yee. I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly. Fan Man-yee was held captive by 3 men and 1 woman before dying between the 14th and the 15th of April of 1999. Her body was decapitated and her skull was sewed into a Hello Kitty plush doll. Gruesome, right? Very gruesome. Right off the bat. Let's give a little background about her. She was born in 1976. She was abandoned by her family as a child, resulting in her being raised in an all-girls orphanage. When she turned 15, she was told to leave the orphanage because they had an age restriction. So she became homeless and addicted to drugs. She was forced into street prostitution, and at age 21, she became a worker. You get what I'm saying, right? She eventually married one of her clients. He was a fellow drug addict. She gave birth to their son 2 years later in November of 1998, roughly 5 months before her murder. Her husband was described as abusive, and neighbors in the apartment building will report that they would be awakened by sounds, by the fights, by the child screaming and crying, different things of that nature. Upon her pregnancy and then the birth of her son, she decided to turn her life around in order to protect her son and provide him a safer life. So basically, she wanted him to have a better life than she had because she grew up having a pretty rough life, a pretty hard life. She had to grow up fast and different things of that nature. By 15, she was homeless and she had to do what she had to do to make it in life. No judgment here. She quit drugs and prostitution. She got a job as a hostess at a nightclub named Empress Karaoke Club, and eventually she left her violent husband shortly before her murder. Due to these sacrifices, she had a much lower income and struggled to support herself and her family. And now we're going to talk about the kidnapping. A 33-year-old member who had exhibited problematic behavior since middle school, had previous convictions for drug trafficking and more, but he was also one of her regular clients at her job. In early 1999, she stole Chan's wallet. That was his name, Chan. She stole Chan's wallet, which contained about roughly $500. When Chan realized what had happened, he demanded her to return the money in addition to a fee of, he charged her more for what she had took, more than what she had took, just to settle the debt basically. Although she immediately returned the money, she needed more time to secure the additional fee that he had added on to her. On March 17, 1999, she was abducted by 3 men and 1 girl at a flat. The group had took her to an apartment where they imprisoned her for a month. The apartment was rented by Chan himself, but was owned by 2 men referred as Sam and Ko, who were not involved in gang activities. Initially, Chan had intended to make money off of Fan by pimping her out to other men, but he had other plans. During her imprisonment, she was tortured and essayed. According to one source, she was beaten with metal bars, sometimes being strung up and used as a literal punching bag, you guys. On one occasion, she was kicked in the head around 50 times. Spices were rubbed into her wounds. Her legs and feet were burned with candle wax and hot plastic until she was unable to walk. She was forced to smile and say she enjoyed the beatings. If she refused, they subject her to even harsher torture. Doesn't this sound just cruel? This treatment eventually led to traumatic shock and ultimately led to her death. Around April 15th of 1999, she had supposedly passed away while they were out. That's what claims say. Claims say that she had passed away while they were out. They weren't around at the time, and when they came to discover her body where she was being tortured at, they basically dismembered and boiled the remains. They also sewed her skull into a Hello Kitty doll filled with dead insects while the rest of her body was discarded. Following to the ordeal, the girl who was involved, was having nightmares about, the beheading and things like that, about what they had done and different things like that, which led her to a nervous breakdown. With the help of the school's social worker, she was taken to the nearest police station. 3 police officers were the first officers who arrived at the scene. They only seen the skull, one tooth, and some internal organs were recovered in some plastic bags at the scene. Other parts were recovered from trash dumps. At the time of the arrest, Chan was living with his wife and his newborn baby at the apartment. The apartment was raided by SWAT officers on the early morning of May 28th. Mind you, Chan's girlfriend was only a teenager, so let's double back on that a little bit. That's the reason for her being so terrified by these things that she had saw, which I'm not saying that's the reason why, because honestly, me as an adult, I would not be able to see things like that with my 2 eyes, just being honest. But yeah, his girlfriend was only Chan, which was one of the torturers or the ringleaders who she had owed this money to. She had stolen money from him, and he decided to go on with these acts here because she couldn't pay him the rest of the money that was owed. He wanted interest on the money that she had stolen. So basically, like I said, she was forced to smile while she was being beat, to laugh while being burned, to pretend to just enjoy the abuse that was going on. They starved her. They beat her with metal bars. They burned her feet so severely that she could no longer walk. She was forced to ingest drugs, forced to ingest food and liquids that made her sick. The torture took place daily for nearly 1 month, you guys. Neighbors later told the police that they heard screams frequently, but believed they were just loud video games. Y'all, make some calls if you hear craziness and things like that. Don't ignore things, She endured torture that no human being should ever face, and after weeks of unimaginable suffering, her body finally had collapsed. Sometime in April of 1999, she died from her injuries. For most killers, death marks the end of a crime, but for these 3, it was still just only the beginning. Like I said, they had beheaded her. When she had died, the group had panicked. None of them expected her to actually pass away. They knew a murder charge could bring life in prison for all of them. So they attempted to destroy the evidence in the most disturbing way unimaginably. Her body was dismembered. Her flesh was boiled in an attempt to prevent identification. Some of her remains were discarded. And her skull was cleaned and placed inside a large Hello Kitty mermaid doll found in the apartment. This detail, the childlike plush toy containing a human skull, horrified the whole world. It still represents as one of the darkest in true crime history. But the case may not ever be solved. It's not for a ghost. Well, it might have never been solved if not for a ghost. Months later, Chan's teenage girlfriend walked into a Hong Kong police station. She was shaking, she was pale, she was just terrified. She told officers that she was being haunted. Every night she saw the ghost of Fan Man-yee in her dreams, in the apartment, in every corner that she had turned. Whether she truly experienced visions or was just overwhelmed by guilt is still debated at this point in time. But it could have been guilt, it could have been truly she was experiencing some paranormal activity going on, or whatever the case may be. But that's what she came into the police officers station and told them, that she was being haunted. But her testimony broke the case wide open. Police arrived at the apartment and found traces of blood, human tissue, and the Hello Kitty doll. Inside the doll, like we discussed earlier, was her skull. The world will never forget that image. During the trial, the defense argued that Fan's death was accidental and a result of withdrawal, not intentional murder. Prosecutors countered. The month of torture provided clear intent. However, because the exact cause of death could not be medically determined due to the condition of the remains, the men were not convicted of murder. Instead, all three were found guilty of manslaughter and unlawful imprisonment. They received life sentences with the possibility of parole. The teenage girl, due to her age and cooperation, she received a lenient sentence and psychological treatment. The public really was outraged. It seemed like justice was really not served in this case. This was something that Hong Kong would never forget. And who could forget this, you guys? Like I said, if you made it this far, I hope that you took something from this case, or it was really informative to you. It was very informative to me. Let me know what you guys thought of this case. I definitely have more cases in the future. Also, let me know some things that you would like for me to cover down below. I got you guys. Whatever the case may be, I will definitely catch y'all in the next one.